Hi everyone, welcome to Tech Down Over. I'm Rick Zanotti and I'm joined today by Harold Muliati. Harold, what's the latest toy we got?
Well, I think you're holding it right there, and people might be able to see the EOS and the number below it.
Which is about here, I think.
Yeah,
right
it's
about there somewhere.
The 90D.
The 90D. I'm the one who swore he'd never get another...
DSLR.
Yeah. I got one. And yet, Canon's always had this. It's part DSLR, because you can see through the viewfinder, but it's also part mirrorless, because when you go into live view, the mirror pops up, doesn't move anymore, and now you're seeing directly through the sensor. In other words, when you're in DSLR mode, you get 45 points for focus, but when you're in live view mode, I believe you get something like 5,000. So very different. You can go all the way to the edges, the top. Very different when you're in live view. But again, your viewfinder is an optical viewfinder, which, by the way, when you look at it, it looks super sharp. It's a really nice optical viewfinder. The thing is, what I do, and I think, Harold, you said you do the same thing, we tend to use live view to do the settings. And then if we have to, if it's very sunny, we'll shoot using the viewfinder, but we've already set everything, the exposure, the shutter, and ISO, through live view.
Yeah, because you can see, you won't be able to see the changes to exposure you've made with shutter speed or ISO. They do have a stop down button, so you can have it temporarily go to the f-stop that you've set it to in the viewfinder. But other than that, you don't quite know your exposure unless you're, you've been taking photos for a very long time and you know this stuff all by heart. However, it does differ by camera, so even then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny. I really like having an EVF. I prefer it. But I have to admit, as I was looking through this, I go, man, it's a really nice optical viewfinder. It looks really clean when you look through it. But of course, if the sun's out, it's really hard to see the live view LCD panel, which, by the way, does articulate.
And I do think this screen is brighter than a lot of their previous.
It is pretty bright.
Yeah.
But I was outside this weekend. You couldn't see a thing in the sun.
In full sun, there's no contest.
Well, the sun was right behind me where I was trying to shoot, and I couldn't see a thing, and I didn't have my Hoodman protector for it, so I didn't have it on me at least. So if you put that on, now you could see outside pretty well. It'll block the sun. But this is a fun camera to shoot. The 90D it's not as cheap as it's a $1,200 camera, so it's not cheap, but it's fairly cheap for what you get. It does shoot 4K uncropped, which is nice. So you get what you see is what you get pretty much. It looks really good on the 4K mode, and it shoots 1080p. In 4K, it does 30 frames a second. That's it. You don't get any other choice. In 1080, I believe you can go up to 120 frames per second for slow motion, but you don't get audio. And you lose dual pixel autofocus, which makes sense because it's moving so fast. That's pretty true for most cameras. You don't really get the best focus when you go super fast. I don't know about the Sonys.
They seem to be pretty good from the tests that we did when we had those.
But we didn't really test it at the high speed slow motion. So,
yeah, I don't think we did.
Yeah, so I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it did.
A lot of cameras don't actually give you autofocus in the really high speeds, just because it's going to be taking too long to rack focus.
But this will give you, I think, the contrast focus, or maybe not. It just gives you no dual pixel. So you either get manual focus or maybe you get the contrast. We haven't played with the slow motion. Mostly we do a lot of interview shows, and so we don't really want slow motion. That wouldn't be too good. So, and we need sound. But it's nice in the hand, not too heavy. This doesn't really weigh much more than like a Panasonic G9 or a GH5 when you have a battery grip on it. I'd say pretty close. Definitely not that heavy. Now, you start putting in the lenses, well, that's a different story. The lenses are heavier. One of my favorite lenses, I don't have it here right now. This is the 40 millimeter. If you think there's no lens on this because it's pretty thin, this is the 40 millimeter f2.8 pancake lens. It's actually a fun lens. It's an EF lens, fairly bright, 2.8. I'm surprised they couldn't make it brighter since it's so thin, but anyway, it's a really nice lens, and 40 millimeters is not that far off from 35 and a little smaller in the screen than what you get on a 50. And it's got pretty good optics for about a less than $200 lens. Not bad. But when I put on the Tamron 24-70, oh man, that thing is beautiful. It's only an f2.8, but man, does it look sharp and clear and good. That lens is one of the best. And Tamron was really making some good replacements for Canon glass, and they are not bad at all.
And I also find the Tamrons, they tend to have pretty good image stabilization on them too.
Yeah.
If you get the one with, I think in Tamron terminology, it's a VC is what they call it.
Right, vibration control.
Yes.
I think they must have been making lenses for Nikon first because they call it VC.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. I believe that's true. Yeah, I think because most of their lenses do come in Nikon as well.
Yep. And but Tamron went from a cheap manufacturer to really high quality, just like Sigma. They were both considered kind of low-end garbage, and now they're pretty nice. Really good quality of what comes out of it. Harold, you've got the Tamron 70-200.
Yeah, that's a really I like it for portraits, and it's like I said, the image stabilization on it is pretty good.
And it's smaller than the big 70-200 that Canon has, which is a nice plus, a little less heavy.
Yeah, and the manual focus on it. I mean, it's an autofocus. It's designed for autofocus, but the manual focus on it's pretty good too. And yeah, it's a nice lens all around.
Yeah, they're good. Tamron makes good things. Sigma, same thing. They make some really good lenses. I think Sigma's got a 30 millimeter. I think it's EF. I don't think it's EFS. I'm not sure for the Canon line, which again, a nice lens, and it's only like $300. Not bad. Not bad. Of course, primes don't usually cost as much as zooms, though depends on the glass. Depends on what you have on it.
Yeah, unless you start getting to the Sigma art line, right? Then
you're about 1,000 almost.
Because those, and the reason for that is those have like twice the number of elements as say the other non-art line or equivalent Canon primes.
Yeah. So I shot with this most of the weekend. I played with it quite a bit from Friday on. We did another TDO on Friday, which was talking about the Rode Wireless Go microphones, and we shot that completely with the 90D, and it did a really nice job of and that was 4K, I think, right?
Yeah. Well, except for the shots where you actually where you're seeing the 90D, that was shot with the GH5.
Right. And they both came out pretty well.
Yeah.
It's a great camera. Very easy to use. If you're familiar with Canon, well, it's a Canon. It's very similar. The menu structures are about the same. On the whole, it takes very good shots. It does not have optical image stabilization, but it has the digital stabilization. Surprisingly, it works pretty well. And if your lens has stabilization, it's not bad. Is it at the level of a Panasonic G9 or GH5? No, but it's not far. And that, for Canon, is a good thing.
Yeah, it seems if you're moving a lot, it starts to get a bit of a jittery look. But for just kind of, if you're not a Chihuahua or you're not doing anything too extreme, then it looks pretty decent, the digital stabilization, which is good because a lot of times digital stabilization tends to give you weird wobbly effects and that sort of thing.
Yeah. And the focus seems right on. The autofocus on this is great. The dual pixel works beautifully on it. It keeps you in focus, and it does a really good job of tracking things that it didn't do before. Not to mention it has eye focus in the tracking. So you could do face tracking with eye focus. So now, but keep in mind, the eye focus, they said you have to be, I think, within 10 feet, no more. So for 10 feet, I mean, if you're doing something, that's probably pretty good. But if not, you still have the face focus or face tracking, which again works really well. it doesn't hunt. So that's important. The Dual Pixel never really hunted. Has a joystick, which I'm pointing at right here. And the joystick makes it really easy. You press it in once and it centers your focus. You can zoom to larger focus, smaller focus, single point focus, zone focus. So you've got choices that you can make, and it's really easy to just toggle by clicking 3 or 4 times. It does the single and the servo autofocus, so you've got both for depending what you're doing. And a nice grip. The grip is deeper. I've got pretty large hands, and I'm very comfy on this. It just feels good. So anyway, what you're going to see next are a whole mess of pictures taken with this. They're just taken either around the home, in the office, or other places. But so we don't have a big variety, but it gives an idea of what it looks like in low light, in regular light, in heavy sunlight. You'll get a feel for what it can do. Anyway, so when we come back, we'll just wrap it up and then buy it. It's a good camera. Enjoy it. All right, so that gave you an idea of the kind of pictures that you can take with the Canon 90D. We were not in a big city, so we didn't have a chance to really take some night shots and have some real fun with it. But at least it gives you an overall idea of what the camera can do.
And
so
there is one option I noticed in the menu on this camera. We haven't really played with it much yet, but it might be on some of their other cameras that I didn't really notice, but I noticed that for their touchscreen, you can set the sensitivity level, which is interesting. I'm not sure how much it actually changes it, but sometimes I do find those touchscreens to be way too sensitive, where you're constantly messing up your focus. You know, you want this touchscreen for some things, but sometimes it's just too sensitive.
Yeah, sometimes if you're up on the viewfinder, you could touch it with your nose or cheek, and that could change your focus. That happened to me a couple of times.
Yeah, so this one gives you a high, low sensitivity, or just disable it altogether.
Yeah. And another thing, we had a Canon EOS R, and we sold it. I wasn't that happy with it. I thought it was okay. I was frankly not that thrilled with it. I think this is a better camera. This is not a full-frame camera, but it takes what I think are better shots than the EOS R did. Call me crazy, but I think they look better. The color is a little more vibrant. I think this sensor, which is a new sensor and not a redo of the 5D Mark IV like the EOS R had, is also a little bit larger. It's 32.5 megapixels. I think the EOS R was 31. I think it was 31.
Something like that.
It's a little, but this has a better sensor to me. It just feels better. When you look at the quality, you're going, wow, I didn't get pictures that good on the EOS R like I thought I would have. I wasn't as happy with it. So it all depends. But and you may have a different opinion, but I found that the EOS R, while good, had some issues. Now, there's a couple things we don't like about it, at least I don't like about this. On the 5 buttons, 5 buttons on the top, they got rid of white balance, which I thought was stupid. You do white balance all the time when you're shooting. So white balance is, however, I found you could program it.
Oh, you can. Okay.
You can. You have to go into the optical viewfinder mode, and then all of a sudden a menu shows up that you can customize buttons.
Cool.
So anyway, you can program it. So I'm going to see if we can change some of these. But they have like metering. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't change metering all that much. Occasionally, but for the most part, metering usually just works. I'm an evaluative more often than
they
not.
have metering, and they have the all-important one all the way to the right, which is the backlight for that little screen on top.
Yeah, I bet you can't get rid of that one, though. Yeah, I still think these screens on the back or on top are total. I didn't like them when I was shooting without digital, and I still think they're stupid. And now in digital, it's an absolute. Why waste all that space? Put another dial in there rather than, I don't know.
You can already get all the info on the live view, or it'll even put it in the optical viewfinder.
Yeah, and you have your Q button and stuff. You can see everything you've got within a second. I don't know what makes that so great. To me, I find it hard to read, by the way. It's kind of orangey. I don't know. Do you use it?
Nah.
You have the 5DSR. It has that too.
It has a screen too, yeah.
You ever use it?
Not really.
No.
I mean, like I said, I just see the info either in the optical viewfinder or on the live view.
Yeah. So this is one of those Luddite, anachronistic things that I wish we just got rid of. And I find it really ridiculous when other companies start copying it. It's like Panasonic puts it on the G9. Why? Don't waste your time. Anyway, that's our opinion, my opinion. We'll see you next time on Tech Down Over. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you do get this camera, have fun with it. I know we are. It's a great camera. Great. I would take this on a not professional shoot, maybe I would, but I would definitely take it traveling. I would take it anywhere. I think it runs pretty well. I'm liking this, not maybe yet as much as the Panasonic G9, which I totally love, but this is getting close. It's not bad. It's fun. But then that's probably because I still like Canon, even though they drive me nuts. Have a good one, everyone. Bye-bye.